Kicking off the project is this reserved chamber pop trip hop track featuring this blissful piano lead. Will's vocals are sublime. I love the hypnotic hook on here. We are caught in a world of art. I can't sing. Forgive me. The song is smooth sailing all the way through and makes for a great opener. This song has an interesting statically glitched out texture that emerges here and there among some synth and banjo strings in the instrumental. The track is pretty easygoing in its direction, the vocals are solid, and I do like the lyrics on the track, but every other verse is a carbon copy of each other and is kind of indistinguishable. So it can be a bit of deja vu, but it's a good track. On this track, Will shows off his vocal capabilities in a pretty cohesive fashion. The vocals are performed as if they were sung in monotone, but when the refrain and the chorus kicks in, Will's vocals become higher and are able to add these fresh accents to the melody of the track, which I love. The outside is evergreen. Again, the lyrics are repetitious as they are for a majority of the songs on here, but for this track, I thought the presentation was great, sustaining a rock-solid fluidity. Wait, that's a bit contradictory, isn't it? On Agora, there really isn't a melody or something to be hooked by musically, but there is an interesting vocal passage, I think, about being in public or dealing with self-esteem. Backed by this like crisp-laced acoustic instrumental, the lyrics go over these feelings of social anxiety and self-esteem, which are sung in a grim fashion. The lowly vibe of the track is really distinct in the track list, but it doesn't feel disconnected or lost in the entirety of the project. This is a very mundane instrumental cut on the album that, while it continues these sonic motifs and palettes of the album so far, it doesn't really leave an impression on me in any way. It doesn't serve well as a segue from Agora to the following track, Sex. It stands at like under 2 minutes. There really isn't anything else I can say about this besides, This is orgasmic, to say the least. I love this track. This is one of my favorite Bats track, period. I love the Victorian-like orchestral embellishments laced throughout the track, and the progressive melody of the track is awesome. Is this love or just focus? The first half of the track is very intimate and then transitions into this grand spectacle in the latter half of the track where the instrumental swells and the melody is enhanced tenfold to sound more confident and alive. Yeah, it's my favorite on the album. Another instrumental on the album, and I ended up enjoying this one more over the previous one on the track list. I believe it was, Stomach Tile. I like this better than Stomach Tile. I like the semi-colorful synthplex, Will's vocals being harmonized with these sound cuts, almost like it's peaking and troughing sound good. It's a solid track, nothing particularly unique about it, but I liked it. Coming up next is Wistful, FATA Morgana, which is a very dreamy kind of house track with a mesmerizing groove and a sonic atmosphere. Like the background is just endless oceanic scenery. Could be because the lyrics are kind of conditioning me, using a lot of water-based related terms like vapor and bathe and boat, but it is a very addicting track to listen to. Veranda Shove is a low-key hyperactive instrumental, if that makes sense, clocking in at 2 minutes. There are these buzzing, blaring gradients, the speedy synth hits, and the electric percussion blend nicely for an interesting composition, to say the least. I think with this track, it could have been given a little bit more time, it could have been more interesting, given Will's pop sensibilities, but regardless, I think it's one of the more engaging instrumentals on the album, probably the most engaging one, in my opinion. I know this is a Bats project, but this song reminded me more of Will's side project being Geotic. The feeling of this track is gray but optimistic. At first, I really wasn't into it because it didn't strike me immediately. It really wasn't worth my attention because I wasn't really paying attention to it. But on my second listen, I came to love the track. Hearing all these small and delicate progressions of vocals and instruments coalesce into a pretty dynamic, aquatic product was a great experience for me. I appreciate the song's topic and how it handles that awkward sense where you don't feel the same way about someone the same way they feel about you, but musically it didn't really come together all that well. I like the vocal harmonies in the chorus after each line, but the verses and instrumental just aren't on the same page in my opinion, almost like they're clashing over who gets to be in the front of the line. It wasn't bad, but probably could have benefited from a bit more fine-tuning. Closing off the project is The Stones, which is by far the longest track on the album, clocking in at 7 minutes. The tone of the track is intimate and romantic, with Will Paisley singing about a special someone to spend time with, including lines I assume are about foreplay and just dealing with the outside world. I did enjoy the song on my first listen, but coming back to it, I don't know why I enjoyed it to the extent I did. The instrumental is graceful, but I just cannot get into the vocal delivery on this track, especially considering how long it is and how many verses there are. It's a weak send-off, in my opinion. For a B-sides album, I was expecting this to be all over the place because most B-side records are more complimentary than they are a necessity. I'm a big fan of Will's music, be it as Bats or as Geotic. I just love his approach to music, being faithful and supple to these traditional stylings of the genres he's influenced by, while making those things his own specialties through these ideas of unique lyricism, expansive song structures, and a wide amount of sonic versatility. For pop music slash false B-sides too, it sounds like it was created during an album cycle where most of his material was scrapped, or during some musical ventures Will probably underwent recently, because the sound of the album is pretty consistent with multitudes of flavors and personalities on display. I will say the project can induce fatigue with issues like album flow, repetitive song structures with little dynamicism, and lackluster compositions become more noticeable on subsequent listens, but the highlights of this record are fantastic and leave me incredibly excited for whatever Will does next. I give it a